For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
This is Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
It's hour number 2 of Cashing Out right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, and we've got an absolutely tremendous hour for you as we're going to be taking a look at some NBA playoff action in the next 15 minutes as Iggy Gilbert, he does a tremendous job over at FantasyAlarm.com, is going to be joining me. Certainly we have to take a look at Eastern Conference Finals game number 1 between the Pacers and the Knicks, recap what we saw with the Thunder absolutely lambasting the Minnesota Timberwolves really in the second half. Only 44 points in the first half for the Thunder and then 70 points in the second half. They go 8 of 13 from three-point range in that second half as well. So we're going to be breaking that down and so much more. And we're going to be taking a look at what we've all got in Major League Baseball as well. As we've got ourselves a really good slate, all 30 teams in action. So we're going to be breaking that down and so much more. And we're going to be taking a little bit of a look at what we're going to be getting in terms of the NHL playoffs as well. But first things first, we have to give credit where it is due. Everyone behind the scenes here at VSiN does absolutely tremendous work. You've got my producer, Adam, who's doing a good job of being able to keep me in line, and our associate producer, Corey, for making sure that all the directions are nice, clean, and pure. We've got the folks that really have the difficult job. I mean, my goodness, making me look halfway presentable in a video/moving picture format. That is not easy, but we've got Jerens along with Isaiah doing a great job on that front. And if you're listening on SiriusXM, if you're listening just wherever you're able to get your podcast, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, because every single hour of every single show here on VSiN, it gets posted up in podcast form. Chris, he's doing a good job making sure that the audio all nice, crisp, and clean. So big thanks to everyone behind the scenes. They are the best in the business, and because they're doing such a great job, I need to come through on my part and be able to get you guys some winners, and we shall see what we're going to be getting on the card for Tuesday in terms of the NBA, as I do think that it's going to be a fun game number 1 that you're going to be seeing in just a classic. The Knicks and the Indiana Pacers, not necessarily what we were expecting in terms of this Eastern Conference final, but nice that we're getting it right now with the Knicks between 4 and 4.5 point favorites. That total shot up to 224 to 224.5. Personally, the way I look at it is a little bit correlated. If you think that the Knicks are going to be able to cover, you probably like a little bit more of an under. For the Pacers, you probably like a little bit more of an over and their chances to be able to get it done there. Personally, I bet a lot of these games much more in-game. I really don't have too much of a feel prior to the game, but I'll be going in with a plan, trying to see, all right, is this game going to be a little bit faster, a little bit slower going to start? And if this game gets slowed down a little bit more, probably going to be like in the Knicks. If you get a very fast up-tempo game, that's, in my opinion, going to be favoring the Indiana Pacers. So that's going to be a lot of fun to look at. And Iggy Gilbert, he's going to be breaking that down with me in the next few minutes. So we'll gather his thoughts there, and certainly have to gather some thoughts with regards to the NHL playoffs as well, especially after what we saw on Tuesday with the Florida Panthers going on the road, taking on the Carolina Hurricanes by a count of 5-2. And thought that was very interesting. We were talking with Mr. Jason Gregor in hour number 1. He does great work out there in the city of Edmonton, and we were taking a look at that Oilers series, but additionally, he brought up an interesting tidbit in terms of this Carolina Hurricanes team. They, since the Eastern Conference Finals in 2009, have not won an Eastern Conference Finals game in general. Now, 0 of their last 13. Very wild what happens when they get to this round of the playoffs. And something I've always noted with the Hurricanes is that they've been a significantly better home team rather than a road team. But even with those home and road splits, when they've gotten to this round of the playoffs, as this is the second straight year that they're in the Eastern Conference Finals, second straight year that they're taking on the Florida Panthers, just absolutely nothing doing for them whatsoever. So we're going to see what we get there. And for the Hurricanes, if you're looking at them in game number 2, after they close right around minus 125, minus 130 in game number 1, right back there between minus 125 to a minus 130. And if you're looking at the openers, by the way, in terms of the Thunder versus Minnesota Timberwolves game for game number 2, I mentioned I anticipated that we would probably get like a half a point to a full point movement with regards to the line from game number 1. Thunder closed as 7-point favorites with a total of 219, and This is back to closer to the opener in terms of the total that we saw in game number 1, which the opener in game number 1, the opening total was 213.5, shot up to 219.5. Opener here was 213.5. It's already went up to 214.5. And right now with OKC, 7.5 point favorites actually open up in a few places at an 8. So sort of as anticipated there, we shall see what that line movement is going to be moving forward. But how about if we take a look at what we're going to be getting in terms of Major League Baseball on this Wednesday? As we've got ourselves a lot of fun action that's going to be going down. You've got all 30 teams in action, and I do think that being able to get some day baseball is very good because, man, when we don't have day baseball, in my opinion, there's a little bit of sadness. You have just a little bit of doldrum in general, waiting for all the sports to be able to get down. Personally, the day ends in Y. You need a day game, but we are going to be getting those on Wednesday, and it's going to get started with the Reds versus the Pirates. This is right at the top of the betting board, and you've got Brady Singer, who's going to be going for Cincinnati, and you've got Andrew Heaney on the bump for Pittsburgh. And right now, with regards to the Cincinnati Reds, they're in that neighborhood about a minus 120, minus 125, and a total of 8. And if we can get down to a minus 120 or less, I'm going to be willing to lay the Reds on the money line. Right now, we're waiting upon just a little bit of line movement at a lot of books. And right now, if you're looking at that run line of the Reds, you're only getting that right around about a plus 130, plus 135. For me, just taking a look at it like a mid 120s money line, I would need to get more of a plus number to be able to dive in on that run line. But that said, what I'm really going to be taking a look at here is the over. I did set my total a little bit north of 8. For Brady Singer, I believe that he's better than what the 5 ERA would indicate. His fielding dependent is more around a 440, but it's been a little bit of a struggle for him this far this season. He's been able to give you a bit more than 8 strikeouts per 9 innings, but has had a little bit of a tough time transitioning from going on over from Kansas City on over to the Cincinnati Reds, as there's been a few doldrums with regards to giving out too many walks. And for Andrew Heaney, he's actually been off to a relatively nice start this season. He's been posting up his lowest home runs per 9 rate in darn near a decade, as this guy is very much noted for the fact that he throughout his career gives up about 1.5 home runs per 9 innings, but swing and miss stuff actually way down. This is as low as it's been in a decade for him. He's been able to supply only about 7 strikeouts per 9 innings, and here's a news flash. The Pittsburgh Pirates bullpen, not good. David Bednar, Colin Holderman, these are guys that just are not giving you great innings in general. I actually like the pickup of Joey Wentz in the offseason, but he hasn't been able to give you too much of anything in general. And then for the Cincinnati Reds, this has been a team that's been able to mix and match in the bullpen. I am not much of a fan of their closer in Emilio Pagan, but that said, you've been able to have the likes of Tony Santillan, Graham Ashcraft, these long guys be able to come in, give you a sub 3.3 ERA. Taylor Rogers has been a nice pickup from the San Francisco Giants as well, and for Cincinnati, just way more firepower in this lineup. There's no way it can be less firepower because the Pittsburgh Pirates, out of your 30 Major League Baseball teams, 30th in terms of runs per game, and somehow, some way, even though they won the game on Tuesday, their runs per game average went down even further with scoring just one run, a 1-0 win. But for the Pittsburgh Pirates, other than Oneil Cruz, who's been able to give you 8 home runs and north of 325 on base, not getting a lot of power, not getting a lot of guys moving the line. Joey Bart, to his credit, he's been able to give you about a 360 in terms of that on base. And Brian Reynolds, he's been able to do a nice job, be able to hit for a few homers, but he's hitting right around the Mendoza line of 200. Brian Hayes has not been a guy that has been able to give you too much in that lineup in general. And then it just doesn't matter who they have at the bottom of the lineup. Jared Trollo, Alex Canario, just so many guys. When he's out there, Andy Rodriguez, who's right now dealing with a little bit of an injury. Like, so many guys hitting below the Mendoza line of 200. And then on the flip side for the Cincinnati Reds, you do have a few dead bats out there, and Matt McClain has not necessarily been amazing. Ellie De La Cruz has been a little bit inconsistent, but you know that he's able to seal some bags. You know that he's got some relatively good power in his bat as well. But I mean, for Cincinnati, the fact that they've got Austin, as I like to call him, the Sayes kid, back, and he's been able to do a nice job in terms of giving you like a home run every about 12 or so bats this season. It does make a little bit of a difference for the Reds. So we can get down to, I would say, about anything of a minus 120 or better. Going to be looking at that Reds money line. And with regards to total, recognize that the Pittsburgh Pirates not been great at the plate, but I do think that regression is coming for Andrew Heaney with Brady Singer. It's been a little bit rough for him. I'm going to be willing to take a shot on that over as well. And then the other National League game that is really going to be a day game, how about if we take a look at the Cubs and the Miami Marlins? And we got a big time trend in this one that I'm going to be sharing with you, but Max Meyer is going to be going for the Miami Marlins, and Cade Horton, here's a who is going to be going for the Cubs, and the Cubs anywhere between minus 124 to a minus 130 favorite. And between plus 110 to plus 115 is that number on Miami. And here's a trend that I'm looking at. Since the beginning of the 2024 season, games in Miami, 70 overs, 33 unders, and a push. Like, the over rate is actually down this year in Miami because it was 70% last season. Now, I do think that this total has went a little bit too far. I do think that we're going to start to see some unders out there in Miami, but I mean, it's very much lauded as a pitcher-friendly ballpark, but this Miami Marlins bullpen is just that bad that they give up game after game after game. You've got Anthony Bender, who's been able to give you a sub-3 ERA, but outside of Bender, you just don't know what you're going to be able to get out of these guys like Lake Picard, George Soriano and company. The long relief has not been able to lend a lot of relief outside of Ronnie Enriquez. And then for the Chicago Cubs, certainly their bullpen pitching has been a bit suspect. They bring in Drew Pomeranz along with Daniel Palencia, who have actually been rock solid. And for Horton, he's a former, shall we say, standout of the Oklahoma Sooners, but that said, he's come in and he's been able to give you some solid innings, but he was down at the minor league level, a good swing and miss guy, wouldn't give up a ton of bombs, but certainly someone that would have his walks issues as well, north of 3.5 walks per 9 innings, but he's going to be backed up by a Cubs lineup that is right now number 1 in the National League in terms of runs per game. C.A. Suzuki, Pete Armstrong, both north of 10 home runs this season, and Dansby Swanson, after a relatively rough start to the season, he's been able to get going as well. And then when you need guys to just move the line in general, you've been able to get that out of a guy like a Nico Horner. So I've been liking that for the Cubs, just 1 through 9. They've been very rock solid. And I mean, under the radar, what you've been able to get off Carson Kelly. He's providing a home run every about 12 or so at bats. He's giving you north of 4 on base. He's been solid. And for the Miami Marlins, not a lot of power for this team. Kyle Sowers has actually been really good, about a 360 on base. He's able to supply you with 10 plus home runs this season, but outside of Kyle Sowers, it's been very rough in terms of this lineup, as Matt Mervis is able to give you 7 home runs, but he's hitting below the Mendoza line of 200. Dane Myers was really your top guy in terms of being able to get on base, was hitting north of 335, but he has hit the injury list now as well. Have the likes of Xavier Edwards and company, they're able to mix and match just a little bit. That said, I do think that for the Cubs, they do a nice job taking it to the Miami Marlins. Max Meyer, very good with the strikeout stuff, but gives out quite a few walks as well. So my total just below 9. I'm going to be looking at the under, and I'm going to be taking a look at the Cubs on the money line. What we're taking a look at next is the NBA playoffs, as we've got ourselves a lot that is going to be happening there, and we're going to be chatting about it on the flip side right here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine, and maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them, from disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Out here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
We're back here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Great to be joined by this man on the Progressive Guest line, as we've got Iggy Gilbert aboard. He does great work over at FantasyAlarm.com, taking a look at basketball and so much more. And Iggy, it's great to get you aboard. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Greg. Glad to be back.
Glad to have you aboard. And first things first, let's recap what we saw in game number 1 with the Thunder and the Timberwolves being a relatively tight game in the first half. Thunder are able to pull away big time in the second half. What did you all identify from this game? Because for the Thunder, it just looked like a completely different team in that second half.
Yeah, actually my bet of the night was Minnesota plus 2.5 first quarter. I thought they would come out. That was probably one of the most emotional wins for that Thunder coaching staff and the roster that they've gone through, as well as this grueling 7-game series after sweeping Memphis with little to no concerns. So I expected them to come out slow. I didn't quite expect the second half that we saw. It's basically a tale of two cities going on right there. And you could look at OKC clamping down defensively. They displayed that through Denver and throughout the season with great fourth quarter play, but they really clamped down with Minnesota in the third quarter, shutting them down, I believe, to 18 points. That scare with Anthony Edwards, I don't know how much that played into second half after he was resting. But Julius Randle had 20 points at halftime, and they basically shut him down for the rest of the second half. And we'll see if OKC can, they're the favorites, so they have all the pressure at this moment. But I think, as they predicted, going against Denver made them like battle tested and mentally prepared to go through the rest of these conference finals. And if they keep that up, they're going to be tough to beat.
Yep, they certainly are going to be. It's a Thunder team that's able to do a bit of everything, and they were able to play a really nice under in game number 1 as well. And do you think that the scoring might pick up a little bit more in game number 2? Because, well, one thing that I thought was very striking about the Thunder is the fact that they went 8 of 13 from three-point range in the second half.
Yeah, they caught fire there. It seems like they have a way of doing that. I don't know if it's the orange slices or what's going on over there. I predicted the under for this match as well. I just kind of think it's a little too high. I think something with these algorithms are computing higher scores, and these should be tough, competitive. The referees are allowing more hand checking, more physical play than they did in the regular season, even towards the end of it. So I expect it to keep continuing, but I do expect the sports books to make adjustments. Like you said, 8 of 13 is not sustainable, or generally not sustainable, even in today's NBA playoffs. So I look for the scores to dip around under 210. I don't think Minnesota will completely call it off like they did in game 1. But, somewhere around 210, I think, is still going to be around the total for the next game.
Yep, I agree with you. And right now we are seeing the openers coming out for game number 2. And we saw this open up at a 213.5. It's actually ticked up to a 214.5. So I'm right there with you. I feel like this total is a little bit too high. And something else that we know is that the NBA playoffs are heating up. VSiN is breaking it all down. So you want to go to VSiN and the Watch app to be able to catch all the action and all of our expert breakdowns right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, as we do have Iggy Gilbert aboard. He does a tremendous job over at Fantasy Alarm. Take a look at this great game of basketball, and you just mentioned it in terms of these totals being super high, and the total that is the highest right now in terms of these two series, that'd be the Pacers and the New York Knicks game number 1. Right now between 224 to 224.5. In terms of that total, the Knicks are between 4 and 4.5 point favorites. How do you anticipate game number 1 going with a pair of teams that were able to pull off some rather shocking wins to be able to get here? And this wasn't quite the Eastern Conference Finals that we were anticipating, but I'm very excited for it.
I'm very excited as well. 3 of the franchises have never won it. The Larry O'Brien, I should say. And the one that hasn't done it in most of our lifetime. So I think it makes for good, compelling basketball. It's always good when New York's doing well. This is a rivalry, and I expect it to play out like a rivalry. I think it's going to go the distance. I'm not on this program, but on another VSIN program, I said the Pacers could win it all. I thought that they were a dark horse to win it, towards the end of the season. You just got the pedigree. You got Rick Carlisle, you got Pascal Siakam, you got a great point guard in Tyrese Halliburton, you have Miles Turner, who's playing much better than people give him credit for, and Nembhard, who's come on offensively. His playoff numbers have jumped up compared to his regular season production. So if those things continue, if Rick Carlisle keeps finding these ways to motivate the team and game plan for an up and down game, I do think Indiana could take this series. Having said that, I predict the under to go under in 224. I just think that's a little too high, even with the Pacers, tenacity to go back and forth, and say what you want. Tom Thibodeau gets a lot of scrutiny, but he's had his players ready for this moment to match this team's intensity with playing his starters, 40 plus minutes throughout the season, even though seems like it's the ultimate tragedy to some people. I think we're going to see, a high intensity game between these two, another playoff series that we'll talk about for a long time. But I do expect, the Pacers to kind of have the upper hand here.
Yep, and with the Indiana Pacers, what I thought was so intriguing about their previous series as well, the way they were able to take care of business on the road against the Cleveland Cavaliers. And I want you to think that that's a little bit of a factor as well, because we know that the Garden is going to be rocking out there in New York. We'll see if we get Timothé Charlemagne out there in the front row as well. But I think that the home and road dynamic of this series is going to be very interesting in general, because for the Knicks, I think that it's going to be so key for them if they're going to be able to win this series, to be able to protect home court.
Greg, you're absolutely correct. And it's just, the mind-boggling statistic was the first series closed out at Madison Square Garden this century. So on 7th and 31st was just rocking, I'm sure. And there's a lot of pandemonium there. And I expect, the Knicks, MSG is going to just be madness. Every game played, there's going to be pure chaos, pure energy. It's going to have a tilt on this game, but Tyrese Halliburton has proven time and again that he doesn't shy away from the limelight. The pressure doesn't get to him. MSG does not bother him. He wants to follow in Reggie Miller's footsteps of being somebody that can close out series there and, disappoint the fans, break their heart once again. And, it just, I think that both teams are capable to win on the road. Having said that, the Knicks displayed that they could go in Boston and win at TD Garden. Why wouldn't they be able to go into Gainbridge Fieldhouse and go get a win there, Greg? And then, vice versa. Indiana shown that they went in Milwaukee and won. They went in Cleveland and won. I don't expect things to change just because it's the New York Knicks.
Yeah, but with this series in general, I think that it's going to be very interesting to see what we get out of the Indiana Pacers. And you mentioned with Tyrese Halliburton and the way that he's been able to just rise up to the format in general. And how much you take a look at things in terms of the low post play in this series as well, because we know that Karl Anthony Towns has been so instrumental for the New York Knicks. And I think that that's going to be a very interesting battle in terms of how this series shakes out.
Yeah, he's always going to be the X factor. Tom Thibodeau went back to him for a reason. It's kind of interesting. Julius Randle had time with Chris Finch, went to Minnesota. While they were in New Orleans, he ended up going to Minnesota. Cat kind of reunites with Tibbs a little bit, and they're both maximizing those players. Now, can Karl Anthony Towns stay out of foul trouble? Will he be utilized at the end of the fourth quarter? I don't know about that, Greg. Game tape suggests that he may not be the guy that they close out with unless he's on a hot streak or Mitchell Robinson isn't playing well or something along those lines. But he is an X factor because, Siakam, Miles Turner, underrated defenders. Karl Anthony Towns, we know, is a great offensive player who's really improved, catching and shooting, a perimeter mid-range game as well. He's just an excellent scorer of the ball, truly. And I look for him to be an X factor, but, not any more than possibly Pascal Siakam or Miles Turner on the flip side. Both of those are going to be important. And like I said, this game going 6 or 7 games wouldn't surprise me. Just depending on whose night it is, you know what I mean? And, at those odds at plus 220, it might be worth a hedge or, a look at, because Cat's going to win a game. I think Siakam's going to win a game. Halliburton and Brunson, of course, are probably going to win a game. And who else can kind of come along in those role players? We had Josh Hart, be it Nembhard, somebody along those lines that's going to really make an impact on this series.
No question. Those role players are probably going to be the guys that decide the series because you know what the stars are going to be able to give you. And I know that's something else that you're taking a look at in terms of both of these series is the finals MVP. Anything that you're taking a look at on that front that is really catching your eye on the futures market and that MVP market?
Yeah, it's such a guard-fascinated kind of Final Four, Greg, with Anthony Edwards, with SGA, with Jalen Brunson, with Tyrese Halliburton. I think even if Towns or Siakam or Chet Holmgren or Rudy Gobert have excellent series in the closeout finals, that it's still going to go to the guards because they're just going to wow us with moments, whether it's stats at the end of the night, the performance in the game. So I would look at that. I like Halliburton if you think the Pacers are going to win it, even though being down 0-1, Anthony Edwards as well, I believe is like plus 700 or so. It's worth a shot as well. And I just don't see it going to a traditional big man like it did with Jokic or, Brown even being a forward. I think they're going to give the award to a guard this year just because they're the faces of their franchises.
Yep, they certainly are. And the guard play in general that we're going to be seeing in both of these series moving forward is going to be a lot of fun. And Iggy, I know that you're doing such a tremendous job. Take a look at the NBA and taking a look at so much more over there at Fantasy Alarm. And really do appreciate the time tonight. Thank you.
Absolutely. You have a wonderful night, Greg. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It's great to see Iggy aboard, and he does such a great job of being able to take a look at this great game that we all know and love. And just a little bit of a tidbit in terms of this OKC Thunder versus Minnesota Timberwolves series. When we started that interview with Iggy, it was pretty much 7.5 across the board, with the OKC Thunder being a favorite. We've seen this tick up to 8 at both Circa and a few other books as well, so something that you do want to be mindful of. We do have quite a bit of line movement there as those numbers are very fresh. That opening total was 213.5, now taking up to 214 as well. And something else that's ticking up, the great slate that we've got in baseball on Wednesday. We'll break that down next right here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Welcome back to Cashing Out here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
We're back here here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. It was great to be joined by Iggy Gilbert in the last segment, talking about some NBA action, what we're going to be getting in the Eastern and Western Conference Finals, and a little bit of the fallout of game number 1 with the Thunder being able to take it to the Timberwolves 114-88. We'll mention it once again, what the Thunder were able to do in the second half of that game, as they were able to go 8 of 13 from three-point range, 70 points in that second half after they had just 44 in the first half. So they were able to do a nice job there. And now, how about if we do a nice job, take a look at this MLB card. We've got all 30 teams in action, and we have to talk about this team because, man, you want to talk about disappointments in baseball this year. Certainly the Colorado Rockies are at the top. Not that the Colorado Rockies, there were some grand expectations for them or anything like that, but starting out 8-40, I don't think was on anyone's bingo card, but this team, yeah, it's rough. 971, 972, and by rough, I mean it's the Baltimore Orioles. They're on the road. They're facing off against the Milwaukee Brewers. Chad Patrick is on the bump for the Brewers, and Tomoyuki Sugano is on the bump for the Orioles. And right now that total is 8.5, and the Brewers, they're minus 118 to minus 125 favorites. And this is what's right now blowing my mind. We have not seen a lot of adjustment in terms of these Baltimore Orioles lines, even though they're losing game after game after game. It is very clear that the manager was not the problem for the Orioles. Now, was Brandon Hyde the Mona Lisa Vito of managing? No, he was not. He had his shortfalls when it came to the postseason series last year against the Kansas City Royals, but he had been there through the really bad of the bad like 4 to 5 years ago, and it felt like he was getting the most out of his guys. And let's call it what it is. If you were looking to can someone for the Baltimore Orioles, that guy by the name of Mike Elias, probably where you want to start it, because their big offseason signings in terms of their pitching, which they needed some pitching because they lost Corbin Burns and they decided not to pay him. Yeah, they decided to sign Charlie Morton, and Mr. Sugano is going to be on the bump here. And if you look at the raw ERA of Sugano, honestly, not too bad. He's got a 3.08 ERA. If you look at the advanced numbers, though, 1.5 home runs allowed per 9 innings, 5 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's got north of a 4.9 fielding independence, so that's been a little bit less than tremendous. Meanwhile, you've got Chad Patrick of the Milwaukee Brewers, who has been very rock solid for this team. He, as a starter, is posting up a 3.08 ERA. The overall ERA is a little bit higher because he had that performance against the New York Yankees where they threw him out of the bullpen in the first week of the season, and then they transitioned him in as a starter. So that warps the number a little bit. Not necessarily some sort of an amazing swing miss guy, only give you about 7 strikeouts per 9 innings, but has been able to induce soft contact. And for this Baltimore Orioles lineup, it's been not great to say the least. And I mean, for the Orioles, the strength of this team certainly has been their offense, but I mean, even with the offense being their strength, they're right now averaging about 3.2 runs per game away from home. The only teams that are averaging fewer runs per game away from home, the Rockies, the Chicago White Sox, and the Pittsburgh Pirates. So it has not been great on that front. You've been able to get a little bit more out of Gunnar Henderson, which that's been a big encouraging for them. He's been able to give you north of 250 average, hitting for a little bit of power. And Ryan O'Hearn has been able to give you 7 home runs. He's relatively solid in terms of moving the line, but I really think that these shortfalls of the Baltimore Orioles, they line up with the fact that Adley Rutschman just has not been able to deliver on so much of the promise that he had early on during his career. He has had some just massive issues for this team in general, and that's been a big problem for them. Additionally, you've been dealing with some injuries, the likes of Jordan Westbrook and company. They have gotten nothing out of Dylan Carlson. He got a hit today, and I think that was like his first of the season. Guy is quite literally hitting a 0.50 for the season. Jackson Holliday has honestly been able to rise up a little bit, but got a lot of struggling bats out there for the Orioles. You've got a lot of struggling bullpen pieces as well. Yunier Cano was really good for this team 2 years ago, and now he's got north of 4 ERA. Keegan Aiken, their opener, has actually been relatively okay for them out of the bullpen, but past that, you've got Felix Bautista, not really much else. And for the Brewers, this has been a little bit of a shaky bullpen for them as well. They were actually number 1 in the National League in terms of their bullpen ERA last season. Anything but number 1 this season. Yopayam, Elvis Figueroa been dealing with injuries and just overall ineffective play, and then We've had Jarred Koenig have a little bit of fall off as well. Abner Uribe, who they really didn't have last season, has actually been their best bullpen piece thus far this campaign. But for the Brewers, even though they're not necessarily hitting a bunch of homers, they just have a lot of guys in general that do a nice job moving the line, like William Contreras, Rhys Hoskins. These two guys have been able to give you north of 350 on base. Sal Frelick, Bryson Terang, both are hitting north of 280 as well. Now, when you have the likes of Vinny Capra, Joey Ortiz, Colin Durbin, these guys towards the middle infield, that has been a little bit of an issue. But but I do like what Patrick has been able to bring to the table, and I really don't like what the Orioles are doing right now. They fire their manager and they go 0-4 in their first 4 games. Like, when you fire a coach, when you fire a manager, you're supposed to be getting a bump, and the Baltimore Orioles have actually looked more sad and pathetic ever since the managerial change. So I'm going to look to continue to fade them. I'm going to be in on the Brewers on the money line. Felt like this should have been closer to minus 138, and I do like this total over. Really not a lot of faith in Sugano, and I do think that we might see a little bit of regression out of Chad Patrick as well. Something else that we're seeing progress is the betting splits over on VSiN.com, as unlike other sources, we're able to give you guys what the market is in terms of broad perspective, along with the money that is moving bets, because we've got our splits from both DraftKings and Circa. They're known for taking the big bets from the professional bettors. Meanwhile, DraftKings, they do give you the broader market perspective, so you're getting the best of both worlds, not just the public money, but the kind of wagers that are actually moving lines. See betting percentages versus the percentage of handle on every game across every major sport, helping you make smarter and more informed bets. Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to be able to access our exclusive VSiN betting splits for as low as $9.99 for your first month. That's over at VSIN.com/subscribe, as it is cashing out with myself, Greg Oops Peterson, right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. And certainly that's going to be an interesting game, to say the least. And this one is going to be an interesting one as well, as we've got ourselves bullpen madness back for the Detroit Tigers as they go on the road. They're facing off against the St. Louis Cardinals, a white-hot St. Louis Cardinals team, by the way. This is 973 and 974 on the card, with it being Brant Herter who gets the start for Detroit, and Andre 3000 Palante is going to be going for St. Louis. And St. Louis, anywhere between a minus 110 to a minus 118 favorite, right around about even money. Minus 105 is that number on Detroit, with a total of 8.5. And I actually do like the Tigers on the money line. Recognize that the St. Louis Cardinals team has been this Cardinals team has been one of the hottest in all of baseball. But that said, I really like this Tigers bullpen. Number 1 in terms of ERA since the All-Star break of the 2024 campaign. Herter has been a big reason why, because you can throw him for multiple innings out of the bullpen. You can start him, and I would not be surprised if you perhaps get a little bit of an opener for Brant Herter. That's what the Tigers did a lot of last season. But I mean, all these guys are able to mix and match for the team, as you've got the likes of a Will Vest, Brendan Hennefy. You go down the list of all these guys, they're able to come in out of that bullpen. Tommy Kahnle, they're able to give you a sub-3 ERA. It's been incredibly impressive. And for the St. Louis Cardinals, bullpen is starting to come alive for the team a little bit. Jojo Romero had himself a relatively rough start to the season, but he's doing a little bit of a better job. You've got Ryan Helsley, who's been one of the better closers in all of baseball. Phil Matone has been able to do a nice job of being able to give you some good innings. But what has really been the X factor for the Detroit Tigers, and it's why they have been right towards the top of the American League this far this season, the offense is so much better than it was a season ago, with having Riley Green, Spencer Torkelson both be able to give you a double-figure amount of homers. You've got Kerry Carpenter, who's currently up to 9 home runs this far this season. He's been able to do a nice job of being able to find a way on base as well. And for St. Louis, not necessarily too much of a power hitting team. Ivan Herrera has been able to give you a home run every about 10 or so at bats, so he's been able to do a solid job for this team. You've been able to have Nolan Arenado do an okay job of being able to move line, but you can tell that his power just not where it once was. You've had Wilson Contreras, after a rough start to the season, begin to be able to do a better job of being able to find a way on base. But I do think that with the Tigers being able to mix and match, it's going to be too much for the Cardinals to overcome, especially with Andre Palante just not really being a guy that I trust. Throughout his career, he's actually been really good in terms of being able to keep the ball in the yard. This year has been a little bit uncharacteristic of him, as he's been able to do a better job in terms of not giving up walks. He's been doing a worse job of being able to keep the ball in the yard. So he's been interesting to watch. He's got north of 4 ERA, but for the St. Louis Cardinals, I do think that it's going to be a little bit of tough sledding for them. I did set the Tigers as a favorite, so I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the money line. And I know it's really interesting with that total of 8.5, because I mentioned it. The Tigers much better with their offense now than they were a season ago. So as a result, I'm going to embrace the over. I did set my total at an 8.6. Now, as of right now, if you're looking at games on/off the board for this Wednesday, the Royals have yet to really square up on a starter, so that game is presently off the board. This one is out on the board, though, as we've got the Padres and the Toronto Blue Jays doing battle. This is a nice interleague game, with it being Randy Vasquez going for the San Diego Padres, and you've got Kevin Gausman on the bump for Toronto. And Toronto's anywhere between a minus 155 to a minus 160 favorite. Total of 8.5. Now, is Randy Vasquez doing for a lot of regression? Yes. He's got a ERA that is below 4, despite the fact that he is giving up more walks than he's getting strikeouts per 9 innings. North of 5 walks per 9 innings, fewer than 4.8 strikeouts per 9 innings, but somehow, someway he's been able to DD his way through, and for Kevin Gausman, swing and miss up for him this season has been a little bit down. He's been able to give you about 8.5 or so strikeouts per 9 innings, but what else is way down for the Toronto Blue Jays? The overall power numbers. Dalton Varsho entered in the day on Tuesday, leading the team in home runs with 6, and he has played in less than 15 games this season. Now, did have a pair of guys, and Anthony Santander and company, they were able to go yard, so now he's not alone in first place with those 6 home runs, but that's very much a less than tremendous situation with regards to the San Diego Padres team. I am a big believer in this offense, especially what you've been able to get out of Fernando Tatis Jr. with 12 plus home runs. So I do take a look at this total, and I do think that you've got some good value on it, along with being able to take a shot on the San Diego Padres on the money line. I'd be willing to take a shot there, and with regards to this 8.5, I'll be taking a shot on the over as well. And coming even next, how about if we take a look at some more Wednesday baseball right here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
If you work in quality control at a candy factory, you know strict safety regulations come with the job. It's why you partner with Grainger. Grainger helps you find the high quality and compliant products your business needs to inspect, detect, and help correct issues. And the sweetest part is, everyone gets a product that's as safe to eat as it is delicious. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Out here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
We're back here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. We've got ourselves a tremendous slate of sports on Wednesday. We've got ourselves Eastern and Western Conference Finals across the NHL and the NBA, but we've also got ourselves East Coast and West Coast baseball on Wednesday as well. All 30 teams are going to be in action. We've been talking a lot about the early games thus far. How about if we give some love to the late games as well? As we've got, as we are doing this live, a lot of the games that were happening on Tuesday, wrapping up as we speak. And if you had the over in the Angels and the Athletics game on Tuesday, you were able to get there thanks to a nice ninth inning. We'll see if that happens once again on Wednesday, as you've got yourself the Angels on the road against the Athletics, as old JP Sears is on the bump for the A's, and Jack Conowitz is on the bump for the Angels. Angels are finding themselves anywhere between about plus 135 to plus 140 underdogs. Minus 152 to minus 162 is that number on the Athletics end. Your total is 10.5. It's a high total, but there's a big reason why. For one, JP Sears is actually having a relatively nice year this year. He's been able to give you a sub 3.5 ERA. He's not giving up the deep ball in the way that he did in past seasons, but as we know, when you get out there to Sacramento, that air is very, very thin, and even the best at being able to deny the deep ball. They start giving up the deep ball, and Jack Conowitz, man, this guy is not necessarily a guy that I want to be backing whatsoever. His swing and miss stuff is not there. He's been able to do a relatively okay job in terms of being able to give you just a tad in terms of being able to keep the ball in the air, but even that has been able to dry up a little bit as well. He's been giving up too many walks for being a pitcher contact guy, as he gets less than 5.5 strikeouts per 9 innings while giving up 4 walks per 9 innings. So he's got a 4.71 ERA, but a 5.27 fielding dependent. Oh, and by the way, both of the bullpens in this game are absolutely terrible. Both of these teams in the bottom 5 of the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA, and among players that have thrown in at least 4 appearances for the LA Angels this season, among the guys in their bullpen, every single one of them entered in the day on Tuesday with an ERA above 5, like Ryan Zephyrian, Kenley Jansen, you name whoever you want for the LA Angels, north of a 5 ERA. Boy, could they use Ben Joyce back after he landed on the injured list, but even he was posting up north of 5 ERA as well, so really nothing going right for the team. Now, what is going right for the LA Angels is being able to hit the power ball, as them out there in Sacramento, that should be a pretty lethal duo, and we saw them hit quite a few homers on Tuesday, but that said, this is also a team that while they hit a bunch of homers, they don't necessarily hit for a lot of average. Taylor Ward has been able to give you 12 plus home runs this season, but entered in the day on Tuesday hitting below the Mendoza line of a 200. Kyron Paris has been able to give you 6 home runs, but he's hitting below the Mendoza line of 200. Logan O'Hoppe has been able to do a nice job being able to move the line. He's been able to give you a double finger amount of homers, and he's hitting closer to a 250, and you've had Zach Neto be able to do a relatively solid job as well, being able to do a nice job of being able to hit for about a 270. He's flying a little bit of power as well, but on a lot of guys that they're just not finding a way on base. And you've been having a little bit of an issue with that for the Athletics as well. So you've got a guy in JJ Bleday who just really hasn't been able to find a way on base. You've been having your ups and downs in terms of Lawrence Butler as well. He's got some relatively solid power. He's able to do a nice job of being able to steal some bags, but things have been a little bit shaky for him. You've got Brent Rooker, Tyler Soderstrom, who have been able to give you 10 plus home runs apiece. I will say for Soderstrom, entering the day on Tuesday, he had scored just one home run over his last 3.5 or so weeks. So would like to see him be able to get back to that old form, because he actually was the first in all of baseball to be able to get to 9 home runs. And ever since he got to 9 home runs, it's been an almighty struggle for him. But I mean, for the A's, you do have someone like a Shea Langolaris who's been able to give you 9 home runs, hitting for a much better average than he did 8 seasons ago. And with the A's, at the very least, we've got a few okay bullpen pieces. They did have to use up a few of them, like a Justin Sterner on Tuesday, but I have a little bit more faith in them. And I just want absolutely nothing to do with Jack Conowitz whatsoever. You're able to get plus money on the run line for taking the A's. I need a plus 105 or better, as I set my money line price more around a minus 180. So I do like the A's on the run line in this spot, and I do like being able to get this total over, as well as I set my total at a 10.9, because ball's really been flying out when it comes to what we've been getting out there in Sacramento. And what else is flying is these bets in terms of horse racing. And if you want to bet on the ponies, and if you want to be able to bet on some horse races in general, you want to go on over to First Bet, because there are hundreds of horse races every single day. You have access to them at your fingertips when you go to firstbet.com. And then when you go to firstbet.com, that is the number one SC.com, type in that promo code of VSIN200. That is VSIN200. That is going to be able to get you a 20% rebate off of all your bets for the first 60 days. That's up to $200 over at firstbet.com. That is the promo code VSIN200. As this is Cashing Out with myself, Greg Oops Peterson, right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. And how if we do dive in on more of these, shall we say, evening games that we're going to be getting in baseball on Wednesday. This is one that very much intrigues me, as you've got yourself a bunch in the National League that have been not great, to say the least. That'd be the Colorado Rockies. They're going to be playing us to the Philadelphia Phillies. This is 9:57, 9:58 on the card, with Taijuan Walker going for the Phillies. And you've got Cody Palmquist, who goes for the Rockies. And the Rockies, they are plus 195 underdogs at home against Taijuan Walker, which never thought we would see that. Taijuan Walker company about a minus 230 to a minus 240 favorite. 11.5 is the total. And as of right now, if you're looking to lay the run line on the Philadelphia Phillies, I'm seeing 2.5, and you'd be able to get that at more around about a minus 105 to a minus 110. The raw run line is minus 160, but I mean, with that raw run line, I'd be able to go up to like a minus 190. Like, I just do not see it with Mr. Palmquist, who had a few good swing and miss starts with regards to the AAA affiliate in Albuquerque earlier in the season. And I mean, the fact that he had to pitch at Albuquerque shows you that he's very used to elevation and just funky, shall we say, surroundings in general. And that's what you need in order to be successful out there at Coors Field. But certainly with this kid, he's been giving you north of 4 walks per 9 innings, dating back to the beginning part of the season when he was at the AAA level. And you've got a guy in Taijuan Walker who's been sort of up, down, all around. Began his season in the starting rotation, actually began his season a little bit injured as he missed the first few starts of the season, but then transitioned on over to a little bit of a long role in the bullpen. Now he's back to starting and has been much better this year than he was 8 seasons ago. Last year, for Taijuan Walker, was posting up right around about a 70 ERA, giving up 2.5 home runs per 9 innings. This season, he's been able to do a better job of giving up more like 1 home run per 9 innings, albeit fielding independent is a little bit higher than that 2.62 ERA, more in the mid-3s in terms of that fielding independent, but he's been able to really lock things in. Not necessarily the world's greatest swing and miss guy, but for the Colorado Rockies, right now, bottom 5 team in the big leagues in terms of runs per game. Obviously, at elevation, they're able to slug out the ball a little bit more than they're going to away from home, but still haven't necessarily been able to get a lot out of this lineup in general, as Ryan McMahon has been a big disappointment for the team. Hunter Goodman has been your best hitter. He's been able to hit for north of 280. He's been able to do a nice job giving this team 7 home runs this season, but when he's been out there, someone like a Michael Toglia has been a little bit suspect. Ezekiel Tovar has been missing for quite a while. You just don't have a lot in terms of this Rockies team. And then with regards to bullpen, Zachary Ognos has been able to give you a sub-2 ERA, so he's been able to do a solid job with this bullpen. Jimmy Herget has been able to give you a few solid innings as well, but all in all, not a bullpen that I want to be trusting in. And For the Philadelphia Phillies, you had Jose Alvarado get busted for taking weight loss supplements, and he is now on the 80-day, shall we say, suspension list, so that's not great. You've had Orion Kerkering have his suspectness all season long. Matt Strom is someone I do like in this bullpen as well, and for the Philadelphia Phillies, when you've got the sort of guys in general that you do in this lineup, I do think that their home run power is going to be shooting northward because it's really been Kyle Schwarber and not really anyone else. Schwarber, 16 home runs this season. He's done a nice job giving you north of a 380 on base, but outside of him, you've got Bryce Harper who's been able to give you 7 home runs, and then a whole bunch of guys are giving you like 4 or 5 home runs, like a Max Kepler, guys like this. So you would like to see that power be able to kick up a little bit, and what better way to do so than by going to Coors Field? But I just don't think that the Rockies do their part with this total. I did set my total more around 11.3. I've actually really liked what I've seen out of Taijuan Walker this year. I have not liked what I've seen out of the Colorado Rockies in general, so I'm going to be willing to take the Phillies on the run line. I might go with the -2.5 run line as well. If I could get that more around even money, that's certainly going to be calling my name to go along with this total under as well. And then we've got this game that's going to be involving 2 teams out here on the West Coast. The Diamondbacks, they're going to be taking on the LA Dodgers, and right now it is May Day. Dustin May going to be going for the LA Dodgers, and Corbin Burnes is on the bump for Arizona. And Arizona's in that neighborhood about a +115, +120 underdog, pretty much 130 across the board is what we're finding on the Dodgers. If we can get down to just like a -125, -128, I'm going to be willing to lay the LA Dodgers as I set them at a -129 on the money line. With Dustin May, he's been a little bit up and down over his last few seasons just because he's been so banged up that it's not even funny, but he's still been able to give you some good swing and miss stuff. 8.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. The walks are a little bit less than tremendous, but for Corbin Burnes, I just have my real trepidations with him because the raw numbers are good. At 2.57 ERA, he looks like the Corbin Burnes that we all know and love. Maybe getting a couple fewer home runs or a couple fewer strikeouts as his strikeouts per 9 rate currently less than 9, but overall he's been able to get outs. But you take a look at that fielding independent, and it very much is a concern as his fielding independent is hovering more in the neighborhood about a 421, 4.3 walks per 9 innings for Corbin Burnes this season, and he can't afford that because you don't want to be exposing this Arizona Diamondbacks bullpen that is really not too tremendous. You've been able to have Shelby Miller along with Jalen Beeks, who came into the game on Tuesday, be able to give you a sub 3.5 ERA, but past that, the likes of a Justin Lawrence, AJ Puck being on the injured list has very much hurt this team. And for the LA Dodgers, they had to throw quite a few bullpen pieces in their game on Tuesday as well, so they would prefer not to have to go to the bullpen all too much. But that said, I do think that both of these guys are going to give up some runs. I think that regression very real for Corbin Burnes, so I am going to be willing to lay up to about a -128 with regards to this money line of the Dodgers, and I do like this total over as well. And coming up next, how about if we do take a look at what we've all got in terms of the finals with regards to the NHL and NBA right here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine. And maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them. From disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.